Thanks, Christina. In the previous installment, we sought out the political motivations of the millennials this election season.
The first week, we sat down with a politically engaged individual to gain insight into their political beliefs. We followed that with an in-depth look into the issues on the minds of millennial voters.
In this third part, and final part, I should say, we conclude our series taking a broader, expert-based look at why millennials vote the way they do and their subsequent impact.
This is part 3 of the Millennial Vote.
Lowering tuition rates and racial discrimination.
Higher wages for the middle class.
Our immigration.
I think the Black Lives Matter movement, I think he could really empower, bring more focus to that.
Our foreign relations. I feel that in the last few years, our relations with other countries has declined very greatly. And so I would say just focusing on that, focusing on...
These are just a few of the issues on the minds of millennials heading into this election season. Our conversations with college-aged voters on campus seem to all fall along the lines of financial, social, and foreign affairs. So where do these issues come from, and what brings them on?
To answer this and more, we sat down with the head of UTA's Political Science Department, Dr. Rebecca Dean.
This generation grew up in the wake of 9/11, so they grew up in the instability of threat on global terror. They've always known a nation at war. They also have grown up in the disastrous recession, almost depression, of the late George W. Bush administration. So many of them have been personally affected by downsizing, by layoffs, by the housing market bubble bursting, and so they might have personal experience with the downsides and the dangers and the instability of the market.
This environment in which millennials came of age played a large part in the shaping of their ideals. That being the case, millennials are looking for a change in the status quo. Political science professor Dr. Daniel Sledge asserts as much.
There is a dissatisfaction amongst young people with politics as usual, with the gridlock that's going on in Washington, D.C. And Bernie Sanders, as a candidate, is saying to young people, you don't like what's going on, we're going to have a political revolution and transform what's going on.
But when it comes to revolution, not all candidates are made alike. Take, for instance, the messages being put forth by Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is talking about a different type of revolution. He's talking about a revolution in management style for the presidency. So Donald Trump is saying, I'm going to come into the office of the presidency, I'm going to operate as if I am a businessman, I'm going to make the sort of deals that I would make as a businessman. Bernie Sanders is saying our entire political system does not function the way that it should. He's not saying that he's going to sort of lubricate the existing political system. He's saying he's going to absolutely transform things.
So if millennials want a revolution,
And if Donald Trump is offering them just that,
then why can't they meet up? Dr. Dean has an idea.
Mr. Trump says things that just aren't in line with where most millennials are in terms of LGBT rights, in terms of women's rights, in terms of racial and ethnic minorities, people of color, immigration. Pick an issue, and he isn't substantively where most millennials are.
To put it simply,
they don't want to hear, we have a system, I'm going to make really great deals within the system. Or from Hillary Clinton, we have a system, it doesn't function, and I know how to work in a dysfunctional system, right? They want to hear, I'm going to change the system.
ideology is one thing, but what about the polls? Just ask political commentator Donna Brazil.
Millennials, you got a lot of love there. I mean, I like a lot of things too, but if you ain't voting, well, you know what? Well, I ain't gonna see it.
Dr. Dean says it for her.
Candidates are very smart and very savvy. In an arena where there are limited resources, time and money, and voter attention, candidates are going to go where people pay the most attention to them.
According to the Center for Info and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement, youth voter turnout has fluctuated greatly over the last few cycles. And what does that mean for the importance of the millennial vote?
If younger voters turn out this cycle, then depending on who is successful and thus will run for re-election in, goodness, what's that, 2020, then they'll pay attention again.
Dr. Dean went on to stress exactly what we garnered from the Circle data. It's incredibly difficult to predict the youth vote.
But her conclusion rings true. The impact of the millennial vote hinges entirely on whether or not they show up and let their voices be heard. For UTA News, I'm Monica Wicki.
And I'm Reginald Atatula.